Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back today on a Tuesday with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going today, Bill?
It is going splendid, apart from the roller coaster of temperatures we've been having the last few weeks.
Yes, and like I was telling Bill before the show, we'll call this the runny nose edition of EV
Yeah.
World because I may have to mute myself a couple of times to blow my nose because it's allergies are driving me crazy. I want to talk about a couple of things you picked up on. The first one is the U.S. only true street legal electric micro car. Now,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
interesting because
Yes.
when I was working with Derek Automotive, this is basically he
Same
was going to
thing.
do a car just like this. He was going to call it the Bean,
Okay.
and it was very similar. It was the same thing. It had to be on slow roads,
Right.
that had. Now in Nebraska, I think you could drive this on a road that goes up to 45, but
Well, in Kansas, yes. Nebraska, I'm not sure. I mean,
yeah,
I had a hand in getting that law implemented, but I
oh,
don't
nice.
recall what we set the limit at.
Yeah,
Nationally, it's 35 miles an hour.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember the vehicles were capable of going 50, but they
Yeah.
weren't legal on roads over a certain speed. And I
Yeah.
knew that 30, there's a lot of places in the US, especially on islands or, coastal communities, things like that, where the max speed limit's 35 everywhere.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and so the vehicles are really practical for those kinds of towns. But here's a picture of the car. Let's see here.
Yeah. What do we call it? The wink, I think it is.
Yeah, this one is called the Wink Motors,
Yeah.
and they're releasing this for $19,999. So a $20,000 small EV, and it's got an 11 and a half kilowatt hour battery, 85 miles of range, which is very efficient. So that's like 8
Well, that
miles
that
per kilowatt.
technically that's the same range as my Fiat EPA rated. So
Yeah,
that
I mean that's pretty impressive. It's of course if you're only going 35, you ought to be able to extend the range pretty good on one of these,
yeah, you
right?
should be able to get to 85 with that size battery.
Yes, that's a lot of it, but it's a fully enclosed street legal vehicle designed specifically to meet and exceed the U.S. federal low speed vehicle regulations. Unlike many
And
low
I
cost
bet
EV,
and I bet most Americans aren't aware of the fact that there is such a regulation.
yeah, that's probably quite true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying it because when I was doing things with Derek Automotive, they had a pickup truck, and the pickup truck seemed great because their whole idea was they were going to offer delivery services, essentially
Right.
pick up and deliver concierge services with the truck. And sadly, it never really went anywhere after they invested like $20 million into it. But it was, they brought some trucks over. I mean, they have some in the U.S. and they assembled them in the United States.
Right.
They
And
assembled
I
the truck.
suspect this company's out of Dover, Delaware. I suspect this is very similar. They're bringing in kits and assembling the kits and then selling them here, nationally under the LSV regulations.
Let me see. So the battery can be charged on either 110 or a level 2 electric charger. There's
which
an
apply
optional,
which applies to any EV. So
yeah. Oh, and they have an optional roof mounted solar charging option, although it would likely take several days to fully recharge the
yeah,
battery.
yeah.
Yeah, but it'd be kind of like that the Elf, right? Now the Elf was super light, right? Because it
Right.
was actually
And
a bicycle.
that was just a bicycle. Yeah. This is closer to a car. In Europe, it would be regarded, I think, as a quadricycle,
Mhm.
which you can drive in Europe, one of those without a license. I think it was age 14 and up, something like that.
Yeah, it
This
claims you can get 4 adults in it.
Yeah, it looks
And
like
if
it.
you're picturing a stripped down golf cart with doors, that's not really what they're going for. It comes with
No.
air conditioning and heat, power windows and locks, Bluetooth connectivity, and a backup camera.
Now, if you're delivering sandwiches for Subway or pizzas for Domino's, why not get something like this? You're going to run off, take it at home, or take it back to the pizza place and plug it in overnight. It's for pennies right now. You could run that thing
and never get a speeding ticket.
and never get a speeding ticket. Yep.
It's priced at $19,995, which the company notes includes total tariffs of 145%.
Yeah, so it's coming in as a kit and being assembled.
Yeah. Let me see. So there's some other companies that make low-speed vehicles like Polaris and WAEV who produce popular low-speed vehicles like the GEM carts.
Right.
Successfully lobbied for heavy tariffs on imported golf carts and LSVs that have in some cases reached up to 400%.
Well, it seems a lot. I can understand where they're coming from. Gems are a large, or at least they were. I don't know where they're at the moment. They were manufactured in Fargo, North Dakota, and that particular company had a role in the economy of Fargo. They may have since moved it. I haven't really kept track. They've changed the car. The Gem doesn't look so much like a golf cart as it used to look originally when it was developed. But there's a role for those. You'll find them. Ball clubs and things use them to, convey pitchers back and forth between the bullpen and the mound. And there's floral shops. If you're living in a more urban area, more congested area, floral shops use them. They can be used for, last mile delivery, things of that nature. And of course, you've got gated communities, particularly in Florida and places like that, Georgia, where these are used, and people enjoy having them.
It is kind of interesting. It should be easy to park, low cost of ownership. It still seems like a lot of money for kind of what you get, but in the United States, you can't get a cheap car. And
not new, no, that's for sure.
Yeah, even this article that said that somebody will probably comment just buy a used Nissan Leaf instead, and there's some truth to that. But on this is actually a smaller vehicle than a Leaf.
Yeah,
and man, if you're replacing an 11 kilowatt hour motor, I mean, batteries now cost $70 a kilowatt. So I mean, you're talking like a battery that's not even $1,000 to replace.
Well, that's about what it would have cost you to replace the lead acid batteries in a golf cart.
Yeah. So it's wild to see how cheap batteries have gotten. But still, it's I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool to see that. Low speed vehicles certainly don't work everywhere, but I don't think they're a great option for Nebraska. Okay, but if you're in a big city where you can't go more than 20, 30 miles per hour most of the time anyways, because traffic's bad, what difference does that make?
Well, there is a role. I mean, I remember having a conversation, maybe 2 years ago with the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, where they were looking for some way of providing low affordable transportation for people immigrants that had come into the Lincoln area from, various from Somalia and Ukraine and places like that, because they're coming here, and they can't afford to buy a car, but they still need to go grocery shopping. They need to keep appointments with their immigration lawyer or, whatever. And the idea was to provide them with a car of this nature that they could drive, in and around Lincoln, Nebraska, the capital, to go to their appointments and do shopping and things like that. So I think in those circumstances, it kind of makes sense. But then again, you can go buy a used Leaf and accomplish the same thing for less money. So
I don't know. 20,000 is a lot. I know when we were looking at the stuff for Derrick Automotive, I think the cost, we were looking at bringing a mid-size pickup truck that it could go 50, but once again, it was still a low-speed vehicle, still regulated by this 35 mile per hour thing, that we were going to sell it for 25, but the the base cost to buy all the parts in China was like $7,000 or $8,000.
Yeah.
And then we'd had to assemble it in the United States.
Right.
Now, I don't remember what the tariffs were going to be on that, but on the assembly, but that was well before Trump came in.
Yeah.
So, I expect that Derek Automotive thing would have been really hard to do now under the current rules.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, I wanted to talk
So
about
what else we got?
Tesla Semi has a 1,000,000-mile battery, claims Tesla.
Oh.
And so that one's kind of interesting. So they're the
And
Tesla
I think they're
Semi,
talking about setting up inductive charging, fast charging for them.
they've got 1.2 megawatt charging for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Tesla Semi program is led by Dan Priestley, who took Jay Leno on a tour of the production intent electric truck, revealing significant engineering details, including they've shaved 1,000 pounds of weight to bring the 500-mile version to payload parity with diesel trucks. That was one of the arguments against them.
Yeah, because
Now,
all the batteries. Yeah.
you get an extra 2,000 pounds. You're allowed, so the 80,000 pounds to be 82,000 pounds. And by taking this other 1,000 off, it actually made it equal. It can carry the same approximately 45,000 pounds of payload that other trucks can now.
And that's just boxes of tacos.
Yeah. Now I had people say, "Oh, it's just hauling potato chips."
It's all potato chips.
Pepsi.
Yeah.
It's hauling Pepsi.
Yeah, that was Lay's potato chips or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Pepsi does own those brands, but that isn't what they're hauling. Anyways, but the biggest knock has always been about the weight, and they confirmed they cut the 1,000 pounds since its earlier iterations, and it's the 500-mile long-range version now achieves effective payload parity with conventional diesel Class 8 trucks. Customers are already hauling 45,000-pound payloads daily. And they've improved the aerodynamics. The drag coefficient saw a 7% improvement over what Tesla previously demonstrated, bringing it down to approximately 0.4. We said the drag coefficient was lower than a Bugatti Veyron. We've actually improved on that.
Less than a Bugatti. Wow.
Yeah, I don't see how that's possible.
There's a lot of surface area there for air to flow over. So,
yeah, I mean, if you look at the image, I don't know what's more aerodynamic, Jay Leno or the truck. But his,
yeah.
Still, I mean, I realize that design. It certainly isn't a flat nose like they've traditionally had, but.
That's still, if you looked at it head on, you're still looking at a barn door, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that it's that efficient going through the air. But what do I know? I'm just sitting here doing a podcast, right?
Right.
Anyways,
by the way, I have been in wind tunnels. OEM wind tunnels before, but that thing's still a barn door. It's just they took the barn door and they went this way with it.
So the standard range version has a 325-mile range and a starting price around $260,000. It has a smaller footprint by removing one of 3 parallel battery packs and shortening the wheelbase. The result is a turning radius comparable to a Tesla Model 3 or Model Y, which is incredible for a Class 8 truck.
Yeah. I'm glad you have time to read these articles. I don't.
On the charging front, the Semi can charge at 1.2 megawatts, recovering 60% of its battery up to 300 miles of range in 30 minutes. So,
hey,
I mean,
go in and have a cup of coffee, couple cups of coffee, some apple pie.
Yeah. So Tesla recently opened its first customer-facing mega charger station in Ontario, California, with plans to deploy 46 stations by early 2027. The battery pack is structurally integrated low into the chassis and designed to last 1,000,000 miles in its original duty cycle. A critical economic selling point for fleet operators who typically plan vehicle lifestyles around 500,000 to 1,000,000 miles. Also, it's using the Cybertruck using Cybertruck power electronics to route electrical power directly from the truck to trailer-mounted refrigeration units, eliminating the need for a separate diesel pony motor.
Oh, yeah, for the reefer. Yeah.
Yeah. So why do we have an electric truck that is then also pulling a diesel engine on the back of it? It doesn't make sense.
All right.
They're also really, really noisy, and that consumes a lot of fuel. So we actually use the same power electronics that we use from the Cybertruck to power a refrigerator trailer unit. They've accumulated 13.5 million miles on the on the Tesla Semi, with the lead truck approaching 440,000 miles already. The fleet maintains 95% uptime, and for the breakdowns that occur, 75 to 80% of the trucks return to customers within 24 hours, but more than half of those are returned within an hour.
Now, when it says return, what is that? What's
So
that
when
mean?
the
I mean,
vehicle is taken in
thing
for maintenance,
stops out on the highway somewhere, and they send a road ranger out, and it's put back into service in an hour.
yeah, over
Or
half of them are back in service in less than an hour.
okay,
Yeah. It's 50% cheaper to operate per mile on energy costs in California compared to diesel.
yeah,
Nationally, it's
especially
20%
now.
cheaper. Yeah. Let's see. But anyways, I thought that was here's some kind of funny. The competitive landscape for Tesla is thinning. Since Nikola went bankrupt, Daimler's Freightliner and Volvo's electric trucks are shipping in limited numbers, but at higher price points and lower range. The field is more open for Tesla than it was 2 years ago if the company can execute on producing 50,000 units a year. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so here's something the haters can like. EV sales plummet while charging infrastructure booms. US EV sales dropped 36% year over year in February. Globally, we're down 11% from the previous year, with Ford down 70% year to date, Honda down 81%, and Kia down 52%. It's always interesting. It's never Tesla. Tesla had their troubles last year, but they seem to be sort of recovering now from bottoming out.
Yeah, I posted a couple headlines that they today their sales are back, starting to climb back up in Europe again. Just FYI, I looked it up here. The current price of diesel fuel in California is $6.94 a gallon.
Yeah, well, that's why it's so efficient. I mean, they've been doing all their testing in California, right?
Right. Yeah.
But,
Well,
it's also,
I think they've got the plant up there in Carson City across is it across the border in Nevada? I think so.
if gasoline costs $5 or $6 a gallon here in Nebraska, people be a whole lot more likely to switch to electric, right? And so you got the situation in California. You have incentives in California, plus gas is so expensive.
And the reason is there's no pipeline. I was just watching a video here a day or so ago. The reason that it's so high there is no pipeline from the refineries on the Texas Gulf Coast to California, where there is pipelines up the eastern seaboard, and of course up here into the Midwest to Chicago. So that's why we can enjoy, $1 or $2 less than what they would pay on the West Coast.
They used to drill all the oil right in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Santa Monica and Venice Beach. I've seen old pictures of it's nothing but oil rigs all up and down the beach.
Yeah, that back in the 20s and 30s. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hard to fathom that's what that looked like.
That's called depletion.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a cartoon, or it was a meme that somebody posted, said fossil fuels reserves, are gone in weeks. Solar is years. If you're talking to compare, right, solar energy as opposed to fossil fuels.
Uh-huh.
You can't drain the sun, at least not unless you believe the plot of the movie Hail Mary. Then maybe that's an issue. But
So at the same time, while EV sales have been going down, DC fast charging networks grew to 70,000 plus ports. That's super, or level 3 charging, fast charging. They're up 33% year over year, adding 36 new stalls daily. Another company called Ionna just joined the top 10 networks with 900 plus charging ports. Charging usage is up despite sales declines, suggesting the existing EV fleet is driving heavily and infrastructure is finally reaching usability for real world adoption.
Yep.
I see, I talk to people all the time that did something interesting with energy or something, and they were just ahead of their time. They invested in it 10 years ago.
Right.
There was no market for it because
Here.
they were, because they were the first ones to the show, right? And in a lot of cases, it's like Facebook. Facebook wasn't number one in social media space. They're like number 14 or something like that.
Oh yeah, there was MySpace and
but there was a whole lot of small ones that never went anywhere. And it's tough. You think there's like this huge first mover advantage, and invariably what happens is the first mover is the one that really spends a lot of money. When we talk about like nuclear energy, they have this thing called FOAK, first of a kind, versus NOAK, NOAK, which is nth, of a kind. And the idea is that the first one is going to cost a lot of damn money.
Right.
By the time you get out there and you made 50 of the damn things, it's probably not going to cost the same.
Cost of the learning curve, it goes
right. It's all that R&D.
Yeah.
This is the thing, argument about medicine is like, hey, this pill costs like 10 cents to make, but it costs them $5 billion to go through all the research to get it passed by the federal government. And then it costs 10 cents to make, and so they've got to recover that $5 billion.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. Rivian versus Lucid. They both are coming in with a $45,000 SUV. Now, Rivian unveiled the mass market R2 version at $45K with Q2 26 deliveries and achieved positive gross profit of $144 million in 2025. Lucid just unveiled something called the Cosmos and Lunar vehicles, but Lucid is losing money on every car. They're in Q4, their cost of revenue was $945 million, but they only brought in $523 million.
Yeah.
So they had a $400 million loss, and they only have $998 million in cash left, which would make it seem like they can only survive another 6 months. There's some prediction markets that do gambling. You can now gamble on virtually anything.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And they give Rivian a 48.5% chance of bankruptcy by the end of this year, and Lucid a 42.5% chance of bankruptcy. See, I would think Lucid would have a greater chance of bankruptcy, even though they're owned by the Saudis. Okay. My thing is,
especially depending on what happens in the Persian Gulf, because if the Iranians decide to take out the water desalination plants, Riyadh is gone, because they're entirely dependent on their desalination facilities.
Well, Tehran has no water,
and Tehran has no water. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But the issue you got is, Lucid's backed by the Saudis. Rivian's just had that new Uber deal. They've got
Amazon, Volkswagen, Uber.
Yeah. And they've got all these folks that are somewhat dependent on Rivian's success. I just don't see Rivian or Lucid going bankrupt. I just have a hard time seeing it because they've got too many things that defy traditional economics.
Well, the rate at which companies like Ford and General Motors are retreating, but that Chrysler in particular retreating from the market.
Yeah. Anyways, I got kind of an interesting one. I just saw this. Elon Musk offers to pay TSA salaries during government shutdown.
Yeah. No, let's just send the ice thugs to the airport instead.
Well, they have.
They have, yes.
Yeah.
And they're terrorizing people while they're there. Hey, I know we got to ring off here pretty quick. Couple of things. In the air electric flight part, they completed a flight and they actually carried mail from Glasgow to Aberdeen.
Dundee.
To Dundee. And
Yeah.
the trip normally would take, I think they say 2 hours by car. It took them 20 minutes to do that. So there's progress being made there. Also, Viking is about to launch their hydrogen fuel cell powered cruise ship, the Libra. So that's happening. And also, we should probably talk. The big news that I've been seeing is this, what's referred to by other media as the bribe of Total Energies, to get them to stop the development of a couple of offshore wind projects, instead take that money and invest it in oil and gas. And that is really making the news, and we could probably take, maybe Friday we can pick it up and see where it's at. But that's the big news that I'm seeing coming across the wire that everybody's reporting on.
This is the thing that always kind of kills me. I mean, energy is energy to a degree, right? But we'd like less polluting energy no matter what. I mean, I don't think anybody wants pollution, but I'm just saying that, the hate for wind really kind of drives me crazy, because I get you may not like the look of wind, but it's not like oil rigs are pretty, and
how many wind turbines have you seen with oil spills?
Right. No,
killing seabirds and okay, all right. The occasional seagull or the occasional bat or something will fly into a wind turbine. Nowhere near the kind of mortality rate that is expected from oil spills, cats, skyscrapers with glass walls, those kinds of things. So yeah. So anyway, that's I know you want to wrap up here pretty quick, and we're coming right up on. I at least wanted to mention those two things, or three things actually.
I'm really this Viking cruise ship that's hydrogen powered.
Yep.
It's quite interesting.
Fuel cell powered.
Yeah, fuel cell powered. It's being floated out at a place called Fincantiere's Ancona Shipyard. A hybrid system with liquefied hydrogen cells. It'll operate with zero emissions once completed.
Yep.
Let's see what all we got on this. I'm curious once again how I know it's a good look for Viking.
What's the cost?
Yeah, I'd really like to look at the economics.
And my friend. Oh, come on. I hate this when I get a mental block. Anyway, Jim Motivelli, an article about half of the hydrogen that's being used in California, for example, is boiling off. So you can truck, a few 1,000 pounds of hydrogen to the hydrogen fueling station, and supposedly as much as half of that will boil off in the process of transferring it. So they need to. That's being apparently there's some new technology that's being developed to try to address that problem.
Yeah, the articles on the Viking ship give no discussion of economics.
Oh no, of course not.
No, and we know that the economics of hydrogen are not good.
But from what we're hearing with this whole kerfuffle taking place in the Arabian Gulf and the Hormuz and all that, they're saying that the cruise ships are going to have to start increasing the cost of their cruises because their bunker fuel prices are going up. So who knows?
They don't charge a lot for cruises. Most of the money you spend on a cruise is all the extra stuff.
The drinks, things, yeah.
I mean, it's when you can cruise for a week for a few $100, if they raise that $50, it's not, it's not earth shattering, right? Especially considering how much excursions and all the other stuff cost as part of the
Well,
deal.
what would be interesting is they take that. How would they? Okay, you take that because one of the biggest problems with cruise ships is all the poop,
Yeah.
right? It's all that waste, and they got to be like 7 miles offshore before they can dump it. And you can imagine a city
Yeah.
of 4,000 or 5,000 people collecting all this waste, and then you flush it out into the ocean. Yeah, I wouldn't have affinity of those that particular vessel, but anyway,
I heard
EVs are
he was
dead.
dead. By the looks of this, I heard right. Oh yeah, it's always dying. Always dying.
No,
It's been dying ever since it started. Yeah.
yeah. No, sorry, ain't
Yeah.
dead.
No.
In fact, what's going on in the Middle East right now is probably going to help spur, because what I'm saying, for example, is it's spurring sales of cars in China, EVs in China.
I saw where Electric Viking did a video. I haven't looked at it. That was talking about how Trump may be the greatest EV salesman of all time.
Yeah,
and
inadvertently.
Yeah, inadvertently, or unintentionally, he's certain that it's happening. And a lot of this is just as oil prices go up, people get more interested in buying EVs.
In buying EVs. So
yeah,
I don't know what it'd be interesting to see. If you get a chance to comment in the comments here, tell us what you're paying right now, assuming you drive a gas car, and I assume probably most people that listen are. I don't know, but if you're drive a gas car, comment below and tell us what you're paying right now for fuel and where you're at. I don't want to know the town, but the state where you're coming from.
Yeah. Anyways, we're cutting off a short day. I'll be back with Mike Herzog, our engineer, tomorrow, and Bill and I will be back on Friday.
Yep.
Otherwise, folks, have a great day. Thanks for watching.